It's been a long time since I've actually had to analyze banners, but this one's actually really interesting. So here's the deal, right? Evernight is a pretty strict character. It's not like a new thing. The one thing that she actually really wants is Hyacine. She's fine without Castris, but she really wants Hyacine because she's an HP loss character, first of all. And she has a passive that scales off Memo Sprites. There's no 4-star Remembrance character. The only one that's accessible is RMC. And to really get the most out of Evernight's passive that gives crit damage, she needs 3 Memo Sprites. So that's 1 for herself, 1 for RMC, and the third missing one. You need a healer, and you need someone that can do a summon attack. Hyacine is the only one that can do both. If you don't have Hyacine, you're gonna have to, your Evernight's not gonna feel good. Your Evernight's probably gonna feel a little scuffed without Hyacine. If you have Castris, it's a lot better, at least. But if you really want to run her as like a main DPS, Hyacine is required. Assuming you do already have Hyacine herself. She scales really well with Hyacine's signature too, because Hyacine's signature gives 4 Memoria completely for free just by doing anything Hyacine. Because of how fast Hyacine is, you get so much Memoria out of Hyacine that it's completely irreplaceable. Granted, there's gonna be some scenarios where Evernight can still do well, just because her numbers are high enough that she may be able to survive it, but I would like to akin it to High Sealance without Kafka. High Sealance right now can clear without Kafka, but there's no confidence whatsoever she'll survive without Kafka in the future. That's the same with Evernight. There's no confidence she will survive without Hyacine in the future. She may be able to do it now, but don't expect it to last long. From the calcs that I've seen made by other people, Evernight is like the best AoE DPS in the game provided you have everything for her. Remember that last thing that I said, if you have everything for her, which means Hyacine with her signature, Tribi doesn't need her signature, that's fine, and RMC, with the MOC Lightcone, so that's good, right? If you compare her with other characters without those pieces, it starts to fall off really badly. If you compare Evernight to Herta, Evernight is like a better damage dealer at like AoE. The upside of Herta is that you can bring a small Herta variant or any sort of erudition character and still clear just as fine. She's not reliant on Tribi actually. You can still use RMC with Herta and still end up fine. And Herta doesn't have a required healer. Sure, Hyacine is really good, but Herta can survive without Hyacine. In Evernight's case, no. She falls off really sharply without those characters. So Evernight is very similar to Herta. If you don't put her in AoE, she looks pretty bad. Like for example, if you want to run her with a hyper carry, you would run Tribi with Hyacine. And Tribi and Hyacine at single target is like their worst scenario possible. They're still like really strong because there's like zero competition, but the team really suffers. And at less targets, you also get hit less, which means she does less damage. There's a reason why Evernight's E1 makes her do more damage at single target, because her damage at single target really isn't that high. With that said though, if Evernight is in a single target scenario, Castris can do pretty well still because she has bounce hits, and she's like the best sub DPS for Castris, so that's cool. Overall though, this is a character that has really few alternatives in their team comp. Cyrene is gonna release though, and she's a Memo Sprite character, so it is gonna be easier once Cyrene releases. Because once you have Evernight, RMC, and Cyrene, the healer can be Gallagher and it would end up just fine, but again, Hyacine is just way too good. Depending on what Cyrene does, she can replace Castris, and then you have Cyrene, RMC, Hyacine, and that's enough. So that's it for Evernight. The rerun is Herta. I kinda already talked about Herta while I was talking about Hyacine, right? Wait, what is this? Wait, do you see this? Evernight has the erudition logo. The Herta has the remembrance logo. That is okay. So, despite popular belief, the Herta is actually an erudition character, not remembrance. So, Herta is one of those characters that if you get her, she is a guaranteed win in pure fiction. Like, there's no equivalent to Herta. An easy win for one of the 3 game modes, which is high value in and of itself. That being said, Herta is very reliant on target count. The only reason why she wouldn't be is Anaxa does enough single target so it doesn't end up being very cringe. Which is still a fringe strat, you'd rather just run an Anaxa hyper carry at that point, right? I think if you were going to start building from scratch, the Herta has like a better starting point. Like in Herta's case, her team is literally free. Herta, Ron May, Little Herta, Gallagher, or Lynx. And that works. You already have Herta's full kit. But in Evernight's case, you legitimately can't build her team from scratch. I think if you were to evaluate these characters at the same cost, I think Evernight is just a better character to invest in. Like if you already have Tribi, Hyacine, and or Castris, you can drop Castris. Castris is optional at that point. I think you'd rather just pull Evernight. But if you don't have those two, I think Herta's better. So it really depends on like the state of your account. Yeah, these are two very good characters. But the characters aside, we actually have a really good Lightcone banner. The only reason why it's good is because there's DDD on it. These two Lightcones are actually insane. It's really good that these two Lightcones are one of the best Lightcones for their respective paths. Because on the way of getting these really busted Lightcones, you get the most busted 4-star Lightcone, which is DDD. Great. That's good. In the beta, Evernight was able to fulfill her energy needs by herself, which was pretty cool. Like at E0S0, her energy was complete. You didn't need to touch anything. But they completely changed that. I would classify it as a nerf. And now her energy generation gets put on her Lightcone. Which means her burst is very, very strong, by the way. Her burst activates her very strong attack and very strong Memoria generation by herself. So you really want that Lightcone. It's like, you almost need it at this point if you want to run Evernight. And also, it's because she has very few alternatives in terms of Lightcones too. That there really is not much else you can do with this character. You have to pull her Lightcone too. Again, very cost-reliant character. You need signatures on her and also her healer. But if you get DDD along the way, that's pretty worth it. And you have Herta's Lightcone. If you're running Bronya with Anaxa, he actually prefers this Lightcone more because it generates so much skill points. And because of Ceridra existing, this Lightcone got a lot more value just because of that skill point generation. Like Ceridra, I played Ceridra Anaxa with Herta's Lightcone and Bronya. I never had a problem with SP. It was actually insane. Because of how much Anaxa spams his ultimate, he gets so much skill points out of it that he can sustain Ceridra and Bronya skill spamming, which is ridiculous. So if you don't actually have Anaxa's signature, I think you're better off pulling Herta's signature, just because there's also DDD there. I mean, this is just an overall a goated banner. The second phase is a lot worse. None of these 4-stars are very attractive, and the signature Lightcones, well, let's talk about it. So we have Permansor Terrae here. Permansor Terrae has very strong verticals, which makes sense because he's fucking free. So it was like, yeah. His E1 gives you a skill point and gives you Res Pen, yeah. His E2 is actually a pretty decent amount of damage increase too, so if you want to go for his E2, it's also not that bad. His signature though is a pretty insane one. His Sig gives him so much attack, like 64% attack, and it's the highest base attack out of any 5-star preservation LC. So he really wants this Lightcone, and if that isn't enough to convince you, it also gives a damage boost to all party members, which is, you know, it's saturated because of Sunday, but it's not ignorable. You can't ignore that. And it also allows him to heal. So he can use like the healer set, which is fine. And if he's having trouble sustaining, he can just heal it back up. He's basically unkillable with his Lightcone, which is insane. His shielding really scales well with Sunday, and without Sunday, he's building up his shield a little too slow. So in teams that don't have Sunday, he's going to have a bit more trouble shielding, which means his Lightcone being very defensive makes him very good at more situations. So if you don't have Sunday and you want to run PT in more teams, like you want to spam him in teams where he shouldn't be able to work with as well, his LC is like better outright. But if you want to run PT with just with Sunday, you don't have like if you don't intend PT to be used without Sunday, then just pull for his E1. His E1 is ridiculously strong. The 4-stars on his banner, the 4-star LCs on his banner are also not very impressive. Landau's choice is decent, but it doesn't actually boost his shield. It only boosts the amount of hits that PT personally takes. And actually, you're better off just using a 5-star Lightcone that has a lot of base attack, like Himiko's signature Lightcone or Clara's signature Lightcone, even though you don't activate the passive. Having a higher base attack is just more useful. Landau's choice is just worse than Day 1 of My New Life and the Battle Pass Lightcone, so I mean, if you don't have either of those, I guess you can pull it, but I really wouldn't recommend it. Is Fu Xuan better than Dan Heng? No chance. No chance, buddy. Fu Xuan is good because you can get her off like losing a 50-50. But no, PT just gives better buffs. And also just does better damage. Like there's absolutely no reason why you should use Fu Xuan at like E0. Maybe at E1 just because there's a crit damage. Never mind. No, that doesn't work either. Nope. Nah, never mind. That doesn't work. So if you want to pull PT, he is free. If you want to vertically invest into him more, his signature is for teams that don't have Sunday. Like if you want to run PT with DOT, because his shielding is a lot weaker without Sunday, I would say you need his signature more. If you don't plan on using PT without Sunday, which is very valid, then you want to pick up his E1 because his E1 is just that strong. Sunday can compensate without his LC's protection. Anyway, let's talk about Anaxa. Oh boy. I'm not gonna diss on Anaxa because he's one of the best characters I think in this game. By far. Because of how flexible he is. But here's the thing. His eidolons are very utility based and are pretty okay damage increases, but not that much. His E1 gives him 16% defense ignore, which is cool. And the skill point on the first skill use, I think, yeah. Which is good, you know, it's all utility. But sometimes that's just not as useful. His E2 is actually pretty good. His E2 allows him to work in PF because it just applies the weaknesses outright. So you have like a way for him to work with pure fiction without his debuffs falling off. But against some enemies, that's not very useful. Anaxa's LC is also not that crazy. It's a good LC for what it is, but I just talked about Anaxa with Herta LC and how sometimes it has like insane applications. And Anaxa is a flexible character that he like works with any Erudition LC at this point. Like even Super Break ones he can work well with. There's really no question, you should just pull the banner with DDD on it. Like even if Herta's LC is slightly worse, there's a DDD on that banner, don't pull on his LC. His eidolons are not like terrible, but compared to how much he gets from the support's vertical investment at the same cost, it's not even close. Anaxa E1 versus Tribi E1 is not the same. It's not the same ballpark. Tribi E1 is just better, outright. If you already have Anaxa the character, there's so many other ways you can make him better by not actually buffing him. Like you'd rather pull another Ceredra Eidolon right now than an Anaxa Eidolon. Actually, you'd probably want to pull a PT Eidolon first before Anaxa's Eidolons. That's how crazy it kinda gets, right? So, Anaxa is a very worth it character, but you do not want to pull on his verticals. There's a lot better options. And it's also just wiser to invest more into your supports because your supports can be used everywhere. If Anaxa is out of commission somehow, I don't... like, Anaxa being out of commission is such a very foreign concept because he's so versatile. But if Anaxa, you don't want to use Anaxa, then you don't lose a lot because you've invested into his supports more than he himself. So that's a nice upside to him, right? Overall, I guess I should wrap this up. Evernight, good character, but very high cost. She wants her Sig, she wants Hyacine, she wants Hyacine Sig, or she can be a sub DPS with Castris. Either way, she wants Hyacine with her Sig. The Herta, very good character. She has a bunch of matchup problems. If it's not AoE, that's just how Herta is. But in AoE, she's evergreen. If you pull Herta, you will never have problem with PF ever again. That's her main selling point. Her Sig is so generic and so useful on so many meta DPSs. Even though it's not their signature, it has a contention to be like their best in slot, like with Anaxa. Because it allows Anaxa to like spam Ceredra's skill more, which is really good. And also there's DDD, so both of these light tones just get more value. Permansor Terrae is free, so you're gonna look at him at E1 or S1. If you want to invest in him more, His S1 is better for more scenarios, because in non-Sunday teams, his shield is stacking a lot slower. So being able to heal off his ultimate is gonna be mandatory for some situations that hit a lot harder, or for squishy teammates like DOT. But from a pure damage perspective, if you already have Sunday and you don't want to run PT without Sunday, his E1 is really strong. Like, that ulti press ban is not something you can ignore. And that skill point too. Next is Anaxa. Anaxa is a character that you don't want to vertically invest in by himself. His E1 is inferior to Ceredra's E1, it's inferior to Triby's E1, it's inferior even to Robin's E1. And his signature is inferior in some cases with Herta's LC. And he just doesn't rely much on SIG options either. He has very good free-to-play options. If you don't have Anaxa, if you don't have him at E0, he's still a pretty worth it character just because he's so versatile. If you're a type of person that invests a lot into their supports, which is smart, chances are Anaxa is going to be a very good character for your account because he can work with all of them. He can work with Robin, he can work with Sunday, he can work with Bronya, he can work with Triby. Every support in the game he can make use of. So chances are he's going to be useful no matter what, even at E0. And yes, contrary to popular belief, Evernight is not Erudition, and Herta is not Remembrance.